killing of Temple Officer
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Thank you. I'm Sergeant Eric Grip. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Philadelphia Police Department. Today, we're here to provide an update into the investigation of the tragic and senseless murder of Temple University police officer Christopher Fitzgerald, who was tragically killed this past Saturday, February 18th. Joining us here today is the Mayor of Philadelphia, the Honorable James Kenney. Also joining us from Temple University is University President Dr. Jason Wingard and Temple University Vice President of Public Safety, Dr. Jennifer Griffin. Next, from the Philadelphia Police Department, we're going to hear from Philadelphia Police Commissioner Danielle Outlaw and the Commanding Officer of our Homicide Unit, Staff Inspector Ernest Ransom. Finally, we'll hear from the District Attorney for the City and County of Philadelphia, DA Larry Krasner. We respectfully ask that you hold all questions until the conclusion of the press conference. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Kenney to get us underway. Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Sergeant. On behalf of the City of Philadelphia, I want to share our condolences with the family, friends, and colleagues of Officer Chris Fitzgerald. This was an extremely terrible weekend, and there are no words to express how heartbroken we are by this extraordinary loss. A man who not only dedicated his life to service, but was a loving husband, son, and father who should still be with us today. While I did not have the pleasure of knowing Chris personally, his reputation speaks for itself. I've heard how much impact he had on so many through his selfless acts of service and acts of kindness. And I'm outraged by this and every senseless act of violence in our city. This is a tragedy that has unnerved our city, especially Temple University and the surrounding community, who remain in our thoughts and prayers. Our partners are here today to provide an update on the events on Saturday night and the subsequent investigation and arrest. I'm confident that they will bring justice for Officer Fitzgerald, his loved ones, and this entire community. Before we begin, I want to thank the Temple and Philadelphia Police Departments and our state and federal law enforcement partners for working quickly and skillfully to find and apprehend a suspect in the shooting. I just want to say also that our federal law enforcement partners and our state law enforcement partners not only worked hard on this one, but they work hard on carjackings, they work hard on gun cases, and we would not be able to make progress without them, and I appreciate all of their work and all of their input. I'm grateful to all of our public safety officers across the city who put themselves in harm's way every day to keep Philadelphia residents safe. I want to also thank everyone working year-round to get guns off our streets. It is simply too easy to access weapons in our state and in our region, and that turns too many confrontations into fatal encounters, like an argument over a parking space. We are fighting an uphill battle, and it doesn't have to be this way. I will continue to call on state lawmakers for sensible gun reforms that will protect our city's residents, including the brave men and women who have taken an oath to protect the peace. You can say you back the blue, but if you don't back gun control and gun availability, you don't back the blue. We owe it to them to do everything we can to stop this nonsense and stop this tragedy. And now I'd like to take an opportunity to introduce President of Temple University, Dr. Jason Wingard.
Good morning. On behalf of Temple University, I wish to extend condolences to the Fitzgerald family. Officer Fitzgerald showed up to protect and serve our community, and for that, we are deeply, deeply indebted. I want to thank the Temple Police Department for their sacrifice, continuing day in and day out. I also want to thank Commissioner Outlaw and the Philadelphia Police Department. They stood with us on Saturday, and they're standing with us today, and we appreciate it. Temple University is an academic institution. Our mission is to provide best-in-class teaching, learning, and research. My job, my mandate, is to provide a world-class education for our 35-plus students. The truth is, I can't uphold my mandate. We can't fulfill our mission if we cannot keep our students safe. Our academic community needs the safety, needs the protection that our university deserves, and we can't fulfill our mission if we don't do it. Gun violence is a national epidemic. It's ravaging Philadelphia. It's destroying our communities. In North Philadelphia, we are working extremely hard at Temple University to do everything we can to keep our communities safe. We are advocating and allocating more resources, more programs, new initiatives, but frankly, it's just not enough. We're not able to get it done. We can't do it by ourselves. In spite of all those resources, in spite of all those initiatives, it's not working. We need help. The systemic violence that plagues this city, that plagues North Philadelphia, can't be solved by Temple alone. Governor Shapiro has committed the resources of the state to help us. Mayor Kenney has committed the resources of the city to help us. Again, Temple University can't do this alone, but together, in partnership, in coordination, I am confident that we will be able to get this done and keep our community safe. We are determined and we are holding ourselves accountable together. The purpose of today's press conference, as the mayor just said, is to focus on the investigation. But in the coming days, we will share more about our coordinated plan and our coordinated effort. We need to do more. We will do more. Today, we remember the sacrifice of Officer Fitzgerald, his family, our colleagues. Please know that we have the whole Temple community behind you. Now you could hear from our chief, Dr. Griffin.
Good morning. It's with the heaviest of hearts that I stand before you today. I would like to first acknowledge the overwhelming support and love that the Temple University Police Department has received over the last few days. Police Officer Christopher David Fitzgerald was the first Temple police officer killed in the line of duty. He was a beloved colleague, shiftmate, public servant, community officer, husband, father of 5 children, son, family member, friend, and running partner to many. I also want to acknowledge the Temple University police officers, communications team, security officers, and administrative staff for their dedicated service to the Temple community. We are grateful for the overwhelming support we have received from Commissioner Outlaw, the Philadelphia Police Department, the Homicide Unit, the 22nd District, and countless others who have held us up, hugged us, and cried with us during this time. There are too many individuals and units to list at this moment who have been instrumental in the investigation and bringing Officer Fitzgerald's murder to justice, while aiding us as we navigate the emotions and enormity of this situation. We would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the overwhelming partnership and love we have received. We are thankful to those who have offered us assistance and will work with our public safety partners to continue to find a way forward. We have been in constant contact with Officer Fitzgerald's immediate family, and we honor all of their decisions and ways they choose to remember their husband, son, and father. Since October 4th, 2021, Officer Fitzgerald has served our community proudly. His father, a former Philadelphia police commander and current chief, has shared that he was proud to be a police officer, but that he was exceptionally proud and loved being a Temple University police officer. Through his final act as a police officer, being proactive in our community, the community that he loved, he was working to change the trajectory of increased violence in Philadelphia. And now it is up to us to continue this work. Thank you. Next will be Commissioner Outlaw. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here today. Some days have passed since Temple Police Officer Christopher Fitzgerald was gunned down in the line of duty by an individual who obviously had little regard for the lives of others. And I can tell you that although we're thankful that the defendant is in custody, our hearts are just as heavy as they were when we got word that Officer Fitzgerald succumbed to his injuries. Before I go on, I too want to express my condolences to his family, his friends, his colleagues. Christopher's loss is not just our loss, as his sisters and brothers in blue, but his loss will be felt by all who were blessed to have been touched by his kindness. Make no mistake that the City of Philadelphia and the Philadelphia Police Department will stand beside you as you continue to grieve the unfathomable loss of Christopher. It's important that we had this press conference today, not only because of the tremendous community and media interest in the murder of Officer Fitzgerald, but to provide the latest details directly from the individuals involved in the investigation. On Saturday, February 18th, 2023, at 7:12 p.m., Temple Police Officer Christopher Fitzgerald went over police radio to indicate that he was in a foot pursuit in the 1700 block of Montgomery Avenue. When Temple police officers responded to the location, they found Officer Fitzgerald suffering from multiple gunshot wounds to the face and upper torso. Officer Fitzgerald was transported to Temple University Hospital, where he was subsequently pronounced at 7:27 p.m. Thanks to the tireless efforts of our investigators in the homicide unit, working in close collaboration with our partners at Temple Police, the ATF, and the U.S. Marshals Service, Miles Pfeffer was apprehended without injury to any additional officers or community members. I want to also thank the District Attorney's Office for quickly approving charges against the defendant. Thank you in advance for beginning the work that will hopefully bring a modicum of justice to Christopher Fitzgerald and his family. The loss of a police officer is a tragedy that affects not only the law enforcement community, but our community as a whole. It's a reminder of the risks that we as officers face every day as we work to protect and serve the people of Philadelphia. Again, I want to thank our partners, Temple, ATF, Marshals, and the DAO for their unwavering support during this investigation. Their tireless efforts led to the quick apprehension of the defendant, and he's currently in custody where he can no longer terrorize members of our community. I also want to acknowledge the hard work and dedication of the women and men of PPD's homicide unit. Their tireless efforts, long hours, and commitment toward this and each and every investigation is instrumental in bringing justice to our families here. The arrest of this and every murder suspect marks an important step forward in our ongoing efforts to keep the people of Philadelphia safe. It sends a very clear message, I think, that we will not rest until justice is served and that we will work tirelessly to ensure that those who commit crimes in our city are held accountable for their actions. Folks, we know we still have a long road ahead of us, but this is a testament to the power of collaboration and dedication of law enforcement in keeping our communities safe. Now, to discuss the particulars of this investigation, I want to turn it over to Staff Inspector Ernest Ransom. He's the commanding officer of our homicide unit, and he's going to provide us with some detailed information on the incident and where the investigation stands today.
Thank you, Commissioner. First, I want to give my condolences to the Fitzgerald family for their loss. It's my sincere hope that this arrest will mark a clear steps in the right direction to effectuate justice. On Sunday, February 19th, at approximately 6 a.m., Lieutenant Marshman and Sergeant Jones of the Homicide Unit, along with the Homicide Fugitive Squad, United States Marshals, Delco SWAT team, executed an arrest warrant at Buckingham, PA. As a result of the arrest warrant, Miles Pfeiffer, an 18-year-old white male, was arrested for the murder of Temple University police officer Christopher Fitzgerald. His badge number is 2362. Officer Fitzgerald's handcuffs were placed on Pfeiffer, and he was transported to the homicide unit for questioning. What do we know? Officer Fitzgerald was in full uniform in a patrol vehicle when he observed three males on 1800 block of Montgomery Avenue. There have been a series of robberies and carjackings in the area, and these males were wearing all black and masked up. Officer Fitzgerald attempted to conduct what we call a pedestrian investigation, at which time the males fled on foot. Officer Fitzgerald notified police radio that he was in fact in foot pursuit of these three males. Two of the males hid in the area. The third male, Miles Pfeiffer, was still being pursued by Officer Fitzgerald onto the 1700 block of Montgomery Avenue. Now, so you understand where the 1700 block of Montgomery Avenue is, it's exactly one block from the 22nd Police District. We recovered video from the area, and out of respect for the family, we will not be showing that video. But the video depicts the following. Officer Fitzgerald running behind Miles Pfeiffer. Officer Fitzgerald was able to catch up Mr. Pfeiffer. Then you can hear Officer Fitzgerald say, "Go to the ground." They tussle behind an SUV, which is out of camera view. Pfeiffer then pulls out a handgun and shoots Officer Fitzgerald. You can hear the shots and see the muzzle flash. Bang, bang, bang. When Officer Fitzgerald falls to the ground, Pfeiffer then shoots the officer as he is on the ground, 3 additional shots. Bang, bang, bang. Pfeiffer then motions as if he's going to run away. He stops, he comes back to the officer, and then attempts to remove the officer's handgun, which was unsuccessful. Pfeiffer then runs to the 1800 block of Montgomery Avenue, at which time he carjacks another individual. He is heard on video camera saying, "Give me the car, I will kill you." The pedestrian in this case complied, and Pfeiffer fled in that vehicle. The vehicle was recovered at the 1900 block of North 30th Street, and the scene was processed. So I've been asked questions before. How did we develop a suspect and ultimately arrest Miles Pfeiffer within 12 hours after this incident? The answer was patrol officers, specifically Corporal Brooks, assigned to the 22nd Police District. Corporal Brooks, who was the operation room supervisor that night, as required, had her police radio on, monitoring the airways. When she heard Officer Fitzgerald was in a foot pursuit, she immediately left the building to provide whatever assistance she could provide. Corporal Brooks then heard the gunshots and observed 2 white males fleeing the area. She ordered those males to stop, they complied, and then she detained those males. When Corporal Brooks was informed that an officer was shot and he succumbed to his injury, those males were immediately transported to the homicide unit. Those males were a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old white male. While at the homicide unit, and after getting consent from their parents, the detectives interviewed those males, at which time they provided us information necessary to develop a suspect. The case was then presented to Chief Assistant District Attorney Pescatera, and she approved the arrest warrant for Miles Pfeiffer. And on Sunday, February 19th, Miles Pfeiffer was arrested and transported to the homicide unit. Pfeiffer did waive his rights, and he provided us with relevant information that ultimately led to the charges of murder of a law enforcement officer, robbery, possession of an instrument of crime, and disarming a law enforcement officer. As of now, we have not recovered the weapon used in this crime, and that's still being investigated as we speak. I just want to take time to thank the other agencies that were involved in this and assisting us in a true collaborative effort to get bring this job in. The ATF unit, Special Agent Hines, when I found out this officer was shot, Officer Fitzgerald was shot, I immediately contacted him, and he just said, "Where do you need us at?" And he was there. The United States Marshal Service, who obviously works hand in hand with us, they were there as well, and also Delco Police Department, SWAT team. And I would definitely be remiss if I don't include the homicide unit, who worked diligently in solving this case. And also we worked hand in hand with Temple Police. At this time, my District Attorney, Krasner.
Thank you. I would like to thank all of our criminal justice partners who have played such an essential role in what has happened here. There's no question that there is power in unity, and this is one more example of how a united effort of federal, state, local law enforcement, PPD, and the DA's office working together can solve the most serious and most, frankly, shaking crimes. This is a city that is shook. This is a city that right now is suffering. And it's suffering because a really good person is gone. And it should not be that way. I want you to know that this morning, through Temple University, we have extended offers not only to the family of Officer Fitzgerald, but also to all of the Temple University police colleagues he had for the services of our CARES unit, which is a unit that provides intense services to families and friends of homicide victims within the first 45 days, one that has been very, very successful in being of aid to people going through the worst kind of grief and the worst kind of trauma. I have some information to share with you in relation to charging. I hope you will understand that not every one of your questions, and Sergeant Grip will be back in a moment to take questions and give answers or facilitate that process. I hope you understand we cannot answer every one of your questions in relation to investigation. And the reason for that is that this investigation is not over. With any type of serious forensic investigation, certain aspects of it take time. And sometimes those forensics open up doors that we didn't even know existed. In addition to that, there may or may not be additional witnesses. I have had an opportunity to review the video in this situation. And you can degrade and undermine the quality of an investigation if you put everything out there and then it becomes part of what people already know before they are interviewed. So for the sake of the quality of this investigation and this prosecution, and for the sake of the integrity of this case, we cannot answer every single question, but we can answer some of them. We know that Miles Pfeffer, P-F-F-E-F-F-E-R, was 18. His date of birth was the 9th of January, 2005. He is from Buckingham Township, Pennsylvania. We know that our office, through the good work of ADA Joanne Pescator, who is the chief of our homicide non-fatal shooting unit, and who also put in countless hours, 24/7, on this case as needed, as she always does. We know that Pfeffer is charged with murder, criminal homicide of a law enforcement officer, robbery, theft, evading arrest, disarming law enforcement officer, violations of the Uniform Firearms Act, and related offenses. We also know, with reference to the crime that he commits shortly thereafter and close by, the carjacking, that on that separate case, and that is because our system generally organizes cases by different victims, but on that separate case, Pfeffer is charged with robbery, carjacking, theft, violation of the Uniform Firearms Act, terroristic threats, tampering with evidence, obstruction of justice, and related offenses. Pfeffer is ineligible for bail because he is charged with Murder One, and murder generally. While we are aware of reports of a juvenile history that have been in the media, Pennsylvania law prohibits us from talking about our own sources of information in relation to that at this time. There will be a time and a place in a courtroom where it is permitted, but that time is not right now. Forensic and technical analysis of weapons recovered from Pfeffer's home, and I did say weapons because it's more than one, in Bucks County and related to the murder and carjacking are underway. They're going to take a little bit of time, as they always do. ATF is supporting the weapons analysis. And we have no comment on whether or not there may be additional charges against other individuals at this time. There are no additional charges against other individuals, but as we said, this is very much an ongoing investigation. Obviously, the big picture is exactly what the mayor said. The big picture is if you back the blue, then you back reasonable control of guns. You back the kinds of things that other legislatures in other states have done to restrict the flow of weapons in a country that literally has more guns than it has people. According to Gun Violence Archives, there have been at least 80 mass shootings in the U.S. so far this year. That is more mass shootings this year than there are days in this year. According to TSA, 2022 was a record year for gun confiscations at TSA checkpoints, which they attribute to the pervasiveness of guns in our society, not to any uptick in airport-related terrorism or terroristic threats. Sadly, this is one more tragedy that has shaken an entire city, that has taken a very important young man, and we intend to prosecute it vigorously. Mr. Grip? Sergeant Grip.
Thank you, DA Krasner. Okay, we're now going to open it up to questions. As the DA said, please understand that this is obviously an active and ongoing investigation, so we're going to be limited to the responses that we can give. We ask that when you give your question, you state the name of the person that the question is for, and that we keep it to the topic of this investigation. Mr. Dean.
From our understanding, he was here to visit some friends.
But his father lives here too.
That is correct.
I think this is probably for the chief. From what we have heard, the details that we've heard so far about that night, I didn't hear anything about other officers or partner with Officer Fitzgerald. Assuming that is correct, why was Officer Fitzgerald alone that night?
Sure, thank you. Yes, Officer Fitzgerald was riding in a single officer car. That is customary for us, as it is in the city of Philadelphia and many agencies throughout the country. We also do deploy a 2-officer car when staffing permits or if we have a specific operation. On this night, he was riding in a single car for sure, yes.
Is that something that you are looking at changing?
Yeah, so right now, just to give a little, maybe take your question, but also add a little bit more. We're taking into the mental health of all of the officers and all of our employees that are deeply affected by this. And so Philadelphia Police Department has been amazing in handling calls for service. We started to gradually bring officers back Monday morning, those that are mentally able to come back and are ready. And in addition to that, we've put them in 2-officer cars. Now, with any strategy that you use within law enforcement, you have to weigh the pros and the cons and balance that out. And so one of the challenges with moving to a 2-officer car is now you reduce the number of vehicles on campus and around the area. So as opposed to having 10 cars out there with officers or whatever the deployment number would be, you reduce that by half. And so we're yes, please. And so we're continuing to monitor that. We're using all of the support from Philadelphia, who's supporting us with additional resources at this time. But all of those things are in consideration as we move forward. Thank you.
So, Jennifer, if you could explain, why was Officer Fitzgerald not patrolling with a partner?
As I just said, It's customary for individual officers to patrol in and around on campus, as well as it is the practice in the city of Philadelphia and other areas throughout the country. So at that time, we had no reason to believe that there was any reason to put 2 officers in a car. And again, we're always looking to cover the area the best way we can. There are, I mean, I'm not going to lie, and I've addressed this already in multiple conversations. Nationwide, law enforcement agencies are struggling to fill capacity for police officers. There is not an agency that I'm aware of that is at full capacity. That's also very, that's not just a Temple University issue. That's also a City of Philadelphia issue that we talk about quite frequently. We are aggressively recruiting to bring people in, but we will not lower our standards and bring in the wrong people. We see what happens nationwide when the wrong people are when the standards are lowered. So we are constantly looking at our staffing and constantly looking to bring in 2 different groups. One is individuals who have never been certified before, and we send them through the Philadelphia Police Department Academy. It shows another partnership that we train with them. And the second group are lateral officers that we bring in from other agencies. And so we are constantly moving between hiring one group, and then when an academy class becomes ready, then we move to hire the other group. This isn't easy to just hire an individual to become a police officer. This is a unique skill. There are things, especially on a college campus, on a university campus, that require de-escalation, empathy, the ability to communicate effectively, because we have a population that has a variety of needs and challenges. And so to have that type of individual, we have to vet them, which takes time, and then they're training in FTO, and then we bring them on. So if it was so easy that we could just hire 100 people right now, we would gladly do it because we have the funding. So it's not for lack of effort. We have more attrition and retirement nationwide than we have people applying for the job, and that will probably continue as things go on.
Okay, thank you. Go to Ms. Rushing next, and then Ms. Johansson.
And so you believe the kids were there to, sorry, this is the police. You believe the kids were there to visit a friend. Do you believe that they committed any of those robberies or crimes that they were stopped for?
Well, if that's still an investigation, we're going to look at all aspects of the crimes in those particular areas. And if they match the description, we'll make sure we push that information to the district attorney's office.
And I understand you haven't recovered the gun that you used, but you recovered other weapons. How many weapons did you recover, and where do you believe he got the gun that he used?
Well, I'm not at liberty to say that at this point. Where he got the weapon from, I have no idea.
But you can't say how many weapons were recovered from the house with the parents?
That's all part of the investigation.
Ms. Johansson.
Kind of coming off of that, did the 16-year-old and 17-year-old, did they have guns?
That's a negative.
They did not have guns?
No, they did not.
Generally speaking, and you all spoke about guns and gun ownership, but a lot of these younger kids have guns, they have access to guns. We've done this many, many, many times where there's teenagers, 14-year-old charged with 4 different murders. I guess, how do you wrap your minds around that? Because there's also a lot of gun owners who are not going out shooting cops or carjacking people. It seems to be tending towards a very young crowd, and obviously he was 18 years old and couldn't have a gun.
Well, our job in patrol and police in general is to uphold the law and protect the public as we can. So there are times when officers come across individuals with weapons. We make the proper stops. We detain those individuals, and we hopefully have a successful prosecution. And that's what we can do at this point. In terms of how they get those guns, we have no idea.
But anything else from city leaders that talked about the guns? Or just the teenagers and the kids with guns?
If you look at the state of New Jersey, the state of New York, and the city of New York, that border us, don't have the problems that we have. This is a gun-crazy state. And you can go, with you and me, we'll go right out to Oaks and Trooper, and we'll buy yeah, because if they're available, and they're in the house, or they get them from some other nefarious process. The point is, there's too many of them, and they're too easy to get. On Sunday, I took a drive out to Glen Mills, just to be out in the suburbs, in the country for a little bit. We stopped in a restaurant, and I didn't realize the restaurant was a BYOB, so we got back in the car and we went to Wegmans to buy a bottle of Prosecco. There was a man in front of me who looked like he was 70, 80 years old. He was buying 8 bottles of wine. They carded him first, okay, at 80 or 70. And then they made him buy 4 bottles of wine and take them to his car and come back and buy 4 more. If we control guns like we control the sale of liquor and wine, we'd be in much better shape than we are now. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And the other issue is, and I've said this before, and you know, media shakes their head. When the Second Amendment was written, it was written for a single-shot, muzzle-loaded long gun used to fight the British. It wasn't written for an AR-15 or an AK-47 or a multiple-shot clip and a semi-automatic handgun. And that's the problem. I don't think our founding fathers even considered what we're going through today. And so this Second Amendment stuff is just, it's all about money. All the problems that we deal with in society, whether it's gun violence or it's opioids or heroin, it's all about money. And it's about the gun manufacturers and the gun dealers and conning people to somehow limiting that is against their constitutional rights.
I was just asking if city leaders are doing anything to kind of research whether or not, or look at how teenagers are getting guns, because there's so many teenagers that get guns every day. I'm not talking about the gun laws, I'm talking specifically about teenagers.
But it's about the gun laws, because when I was 15, I never saw a gun.
Gun laws have been the same.
I never saw a gun when I was 15, 16 years old. I wouldn't even know where to go and look at one. And now they're in everybody's waistband. So the government and the state and the government in the U.S. need to do something to limit this. They don't have this problem in Canada. They don't have this problem in Europe. They don't have this problem in any place where you can't get a gun. And they have less of a problem in New Jersey and New York.
Okay, out of respect for everybody's time, I'm going to take one more question. Ms. Rule, anybody else will get information off this side. Ms. Rule, go ahead, please.
That is part of the investigation. That is still part of the investigation. Yes, they were. One of them was.
And then from a patrol standpoint, I know he was by himself for that, but knowing that there are carjackings and robberies in the area, or other officers strategically patrolled in that area that night, so he wasn't operating alone. Whether it's Temple or both.
Yeah, so just to give a little bit of a overview of kind of how we partner in that area. So we have campus, which is the inner area where we have buildings and infrastructure, and then beyond that is what we would call the, the patrol zone, where we co-police with Philadelphia Police Department. This is unique because in many other parts of the city, you have a single agency. In the area around Temple, we actually have two agencies, so we have a duplicate response for all of these calls. We have their CAD, their computer-aided dispatch system, in our communications center. As calls come into the entire city of Philadelphia, we see those calls and we dispatch our officers within the patrol zone, and they likewise have communications in with us. So we are responding to those same complaints. The officers were on site within minutes to apprehend two individuals that were with the shooter, as well as render aid to the officer. So this is yes, we would like more police officers, but in this circumstance, we actually have double the amount that other places do not have.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Doctor. Listen, we want to thank everybody for coming out here today. Also want to give acknowledgement again to our state and federal local partners.